Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine, just for a second, the most complex, highly efficient, continuously operating factory ever built. I mean, it never sleeps, it actually repairs itself, and it runs on literal microscopic machinery. Now, I'm not talking about some massive industrial plant here. I'm talking about you. The human body is absolutely the ultimate biochemical factory. And today, we're going to explore the fundamental molecular foundations that keep this incredible facility running smoothly.
Now, everything in our biological factory is built from and operated by biomolecules. Basically, biomolecules are naturally occurring chemical compounds that are absolutely essential for everything, from your basic physical structure to growth, reproduction, and just everyday maintenance. Every single living cell contains a highly specific set of these molecules that are interacting continuously. There are 6 major components keeping your factory online: carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, vitamins, and hormones. And biochemistry? Well, that's simply the science of watching how these molecules react and work together inside living systems. So here's our agenda for today's explainer to help make sense of this immense operation. We're looking at 1. Carbohydrates, 2. Proteins and enzymes, 3. Nucleic acids, and 4. Vitamins and hormones. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Carbohydrates. Because every factory needs power, right? This is exactly how our biological factory receives, processes, and stores its fundamental energy. Chemically speaking, carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. But if you look at their general formula, CXH2OY, it reveals that they are quite literally carbon hydrated with water. Makes sense, right? We often call them saccharides because many of the simpler ones, like the monosaccharides glucose and fructose, taste incredibly sweet. These simple sugars are basically your base units. When you link 2 of them together through a glycosidic linkage, you get a disaccharide, like the sucrose or table sugar you'd put in your coffee. Link a whole bunch together, you get massive polymers called polysaccharides.
Now, what's really interesting about this next bit is the profound difference that a tiny structural change can make. Take a look at starch versus cellulose. Both of these are polysaccharides made entirely of glucose. But starch is a polymer of alpha glucose. Plants use it for food storage, and animals, like us, can easily digest it to get an immediate source of energy. Cellulose, on the other hand, well, that's a polymer of beta glucose. That tiny little shift means it is strictly structural, forming plant cell walls, and it's completely indigestible to humans. So, same basic building blocks, but a totally different function in the factory. Moving on to Section 2, Proteins and Enzymes. So, if carbohydrates are the fuel, who actually does the heavy lifting in our factory? Who builds the walls and operates the machinery? That brings us to our cellular workforce. Proteins are complex polymers constructed from alpha amino acids, held together by peptide bonds. You're probably getting these from sources like milk, eggs, fish, and pulses. What makes amino acids so fascinating is that in an aqueous solution, like, say, inside your body, they exist as zwitterions, which are dipolar ions. Basically, they have both a positive and negative charge. This gives them an amphoteric nature, meaning they can act as an acid or a base, depending on exactly what the factory needs at that moment. It makes them incredibly adaptable building blocks. But, here's the catch. While your body can synthesize some amino acids from scratch, like glycine and alanine, there are several it absolutely cannot make on its own. These are your essential amino acids, and they must be imported directly from the food you eat. So, how do we keep track of these vital raw materials? Well, let me introduce you to a very helpful memory trick: Private Tim Hall. That stands for phenylalanine, valine, threonine, tryptophan, isoleucine, methionine, histidine, arginine, leucine, and lysine. If your diet doesn't supply Private Tim Hall, your factory simply cannot build the machinery it needs to survive. Let's move along and see how this builds from simple sequences into really complex machinery. Proteins actually have 4 levels of structure. The primary structure is just your straight sequence of amino acids. The secondary structure introduces hydrogen bonding, which either twists the chain into an alpha helix or folds it into a beta-pleated sheet. Tertiary is the complex 3D folding of that entire chain. And quaternary? That's when multiple folded chains lock together, kind of like in hemoglobin. Now, when you cook an egg or curdle milk, the heat or pH change causes what we call denaturation. This destroys those delicate secondary and tertiary folds, causing the protein to lose its biological activity. But importantly, that primary sequence of amino acids remains completely intact.
Now, some of these highly folded globular proteins act as biological catalysts. We call them enzymes. They lower the activation energy required for biochemical reactions, making them happen incredibly fast. And this brilliantly illustrates the lock and key theory. You see, an enzyme is highly specific. It has an active site perfectly shaped for a specific molecule or substrate to slide into, literally exactly like a key fits into a lock. Once it clicks, bam, the reaction happens instantly.
Section 3. Nucleic acids. You know, a factory this complex doesn't just run on chaos. It needs a master control room, a place where the original blueprints and operating instructions are securely stored and copied.
That's where these come in. Nucleic acids are the master controllers of heredity and protein synthesis. They're polymers made up of repeating units called nucleotides. And every single nucleotide is built from 3 core components: a nitrogen base, which can be a purine like adenine or guanine, or a pyrimidine like cytosine or thymine, a pentose sugar, and a phosphate group.
There are 2 main types of nucleic acids in this control room, and the duality here is just fascinating. First up, we have DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. It features the famous Watson and Crick double helix model, 2 complementary strands locked together with hydrogen bonds, where adenine always pairs with thymine and guanine with cytosine. It's the ultimate long-term storage of your genetic information. In fact, to put that into perspective, if you uncoiled all the DNA in our body, it would stretch to the sun and back multiple times. No way, right? Then, working alongside it is RNA, or ribonucleic acid. It uses a different sugar, replaces thymine with uracil, and is generally single-stranded. RNA's job is taking the genetic message from the DNA and actually executing it to synthesize proteins. Think of it like this: DNA is the blueprint, and RNA is the foreman reading that blueprint right there on the factory floor.
Section 4. Vitamins and hormones. We've reached the last division of our biochemical factory. If the DNA is the blueprint and proteins are the machines, well, vitamins and hormones are the specialized maintenance crews and the high-speed communication network ensuring everything is regulated. Let's talk vitamins. Vitamins are organic compounds required in small quantities for normal health. It becomes incredibly clear how critical these micronutrients are when the factory lacks them. For instance, a deficiency in vitamin A causes night blindness. Lacking B1 leads to beriberi. Without vitamin C, you get scurvy, which was a very real problem for our historical factory workers, the pirates. And a lack of vitamin D results in rickets. Your body needs these compounds constantly to regulate its internal environment. But here's an important distinction to make. The B-complex vitamins and vitamin C are water-soluble, so they aren't generally stored in the body and need to be replenished constantly. But what about the ones that are fat-soluble, the ones your body can actually store long-term in its tissues? Any guesses? This simple trick to remember the fat-soluble vitamins is the acronym ADEK. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble. Your body absorbs them right alongside dietary fats and can keep them safely in reserve for when the factory needs a little tune-up. And working right alongside those vitamins are your hormones. These are basically the factory's internal Wi-Fi. They're chemical messengers produced by your endocrine glands and shipped out through the bloodstream to targeted organs. They come in different structural forms too. Some are steroids like testosterone, some are peptides like insulin, and others are derived from amino acids like epinephrine. They manage literally everything from metabolism and growth to your stress response and blood glucose levels. So the crucial point is how we tie this whole biochemical factory together. Let's recap. Carbohydrates, built from monosaccharides, give you your energy. Proteins, constructed from amino acids, handle growth, structure, and repair. Nucleic acids, chained from nucleotides, provide the genetic control and instructions. And hormones, originating from various sources, act as the chemical messaging system coordinating the entire grand operation.
It really is awe-inspiring when you break it all down, isn't it? Every time you move, breathe, or even think, millions of these biomolecules are reacting in perfect harmony to make it happen. We've just decoded the ultimate biochemical factory inside of you, looking at the pure molecular foundations of life itself. But biology is vast, and the rabbit hole goes incredibly deep. So what biological mysteries will you unlock next? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.